afternoon, everybody. Welcome in to a Thursday Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. I'm Dennis Fithian. It is December the 1st, and I'm happy to be here talking with you. We'll do so over the next hour. We are live weekdays at 1 o'clock talking about the latest in Michigan sports. And it's been a lot of great stuff to talk about when it comes down to Michigan. A lot of fun things. Undefeated, look at his program. It's awesome. Everything going good. And then today happened this morning where it is a situation that a captain on the Michigan football team is going to have to deal with that. We're going to get to that straight ahead, and let's do it. I want to tell everyone that if you're looking for the latest on the Maize in Blue, you can go to michigan.rivals.com and sign up for a subscription to the Maize and Blue Review, and you'll know everything that's going on with the Wolverines. You can give it as a gift, the gift of the Maize and Blue Review this holiday season. Awesome gift. Take it from me. Recruiting, the latest on the football team, practice, anything else that's going on, you're right up to speed. Go to michigan.rivals.com for that. Now, as for today, what we'll be talking about, there's some odds that I've looked at for U of M and some of their opponents that certainly that they're going to play on Saturday and then possibly beyond in the college football playoff. I thought were interesting. We'll get to that. We will talk specifically about Michigan's opponent on Saturday night, Lucas Oil Field, the Purdue Boilermakers in the challenge that Jeff Brom team presents. We will get to that, but we will start with that breaking news that I alluded to about Michigan's captain, and it's not good news. It is about Mazi Smith, the Michigan's captain, one of Michigan's captain, Michigan defensive lineman, charged with carrying a concealed weapon. That was a story that broke today. I'm reading from Angelique Shingelis's story from the Detroit News. And here's what Angelique wrote. Michigan defensive lineman Mazi Smith on Wednesday was charged with carrying a concealed weapon, a felony, according to 15th District Court. The original offense date was October 7th. According to records, the day before Michigan played at Indiana, he is represented by attorney John Shea. So there's the story. Got a lot of things going on here. I got different people texting me and some different things like that. I'm going to take a look at some of these because this is a fluid story and things that are moving here. And we might be able to bring somebody on to see Trevor McCue. Maybe we'll give him a call in a minute and see what he can add. I will add some of the things that I have just been thinking about since this has happened. And I was talking with a lawyer myself. We do have a statement from Jim Harbaugh. Let's just see what that statement. I'm gonna get to that statement. That was something that's new. A statement from Jim Harbaugh. Let me see if I can get that out there to you. Okay. Let's see if I can get that statement from Jim Harbaugh to you. I would imagine it would be right here, ready to be read by the latest. Let's see anybody posting it. I do have a copy of it here. Let me see. This is a statement from, statement from Ward Manuel. Let me look and see if I can just get some definite confirmation on some of the latest on this. You'll understand. I don't want to make sure that I'm getting the statement correct, making sure I'm getting it. Here it is. We've got Ward Manuel releasing a statement. We've got Jim Harbaugh releasing a statement on the Mazi Smith incident. So here it is. So let's just read it here. Athletic Director Ward Manuel says that Mazi Smith will continue to participate with the program. Quote, "We are aware of the charge against Mazi from a traffic stop back in October," Manuel said in a statement. "Mazi was honest, forthcoming, and cooperative from the beginning and is a tremendous young man. He is not and never has been considered a threat to the university or community. Based on the information communicated to us, we will continue to allow the judicial process to play out. Mazi will continue to participate as a member of the team." So they're aware, and Mazi's on the team. He's going to Indy. It sounds like he's going to play on Saturday. Here's a statement from Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh says, quote, "I have respect for our judicial process, and with that respect brings confidence that a fair and just resolution is forthcoming," Harbaugh said in part of the statement. Harbaugh continues, "Mazi's character and the trust that he has earned over the past 4 years will continue to be considered throughout the process." So there it is. And that comes from Ward Manuel. That comes from Jim Harbaugh. And here's what I was thinking. And let's get right to the bottom of these questions that I had, because they have just been answered. What is Harbaugh's role going to be in this? Well, Harbaugh has just issued a statement, and he is standing by his athletic director on that. Mazi Smith is forthcoming and cooperative, and based on the information, he will continue to participate as a member of the team. So that's the effect on the team. You could say it could be a distraction, certainly, the possibility of this hanging over their head, but he is going to continue to participate as a member of the team. That sounds like he's playing on Saturday. And as far as Harbaugh's role, my question is that he has answered that with a statement as well, coming out in dual statements along with the athletic director. So there's the questions about the effect on the team. There's the question answered about Harbaugh's role and when he will talk. The answer is now. Talk, communicate in a statement. And that is good. Getting out there, letting this, I don't know, fester, whatever you want to say. Wait till they get to Indianapolis. There would be nothing but what's going on here. Why was there nearly 8 weeks between when this happened? The day before, was it October 7th, before the Indiana game? And why, that long? And then what now? The part about why nearly 8 weeks, and look, there's a lot of people that, that you start comparing, like, well, what about this? And I see a lot of Michigan State people are like, well, this is what happened. Situations, when it comes down to the law and charges or things, you have to take each situation, trying to compare, how Mel Tucker dealt with his players in the Michigan tunnel and their suspensions to what Jim Harbaugh is doing. I know it's going to be done. I know it's already being done, but you do have to take things on a case-by-case situation. And so that's what I'm doing here with Mazi Smith. I just like a lot of you probably wondered, wow, this seems like a very long time. Was there any preferential treatment? Because, Mazi Smith is an outstanding player, captain on Michigan's team. To wait till, you could say conveniently, whatever, till after the Ohio State game, Michigan with an undefeated season. You could say that even looking at the schedule, when it happened the eve of the Indiana game, the following 2 weeks, you had Penn State, and then I guess there was a bye week in there. The following 2 games were Penn State and Michigan State, 2 of the biggest games on Michigan's schedule. So you could say, okay, and those things, trying to separate that and doing what's right. Those are legitimate questions to ask. I don't necessarily have the answers if there were preferential treatment. I did ask somebody who is a lawyer in this situation, and not with this particular situation, but I asked if it was if something like this could. I'm actually looking for my text thread, and here it is. I asked if there was a good reason to wait 8 weeks to file a charge on Mazi. And the person that I know that who is a lawyer in the state of Michigan and has some experience with things like this, and actually said he had spoke with Mazi Smith's lawyer, said that the delay is normal. Oh, that's what he said. The decision to authorize actually was made 2 weeks ago, but the officer in charge was out of town. And so this didn't get into the system until yesterday. Now you can say, oh, that's convenient. Like, I don't know. Like, you can say that. I understand that. Like 8 weeks and then wait 2 weeks because of a holiday and the police officer. Like, but I think people that are familiar with things like this happen. These are the kind of delays and kind of situations like this. But, I'm not saying that there has not been preferential treatment. I'm also not saying that there has been. I don't know. I do understand the question about why it would take this long. And so that's why I am putting it out there like that. The indication to me that this will be a situation that will be a plea bargain. This will be pled. And so the felony part of this, and you think about, and then you read the statement from Ward Manuel and Jim Harbaugh, who are going to have a little bit more information than we are in this situation. So, originally before I read that statement, I was going to speculate and guess that you would not see Mazi Smith with Michigan and Indianapolis, but we already know that has changed and that he is going to play, or he is going to be with Michigan. It doesn't say specifically, if you look at those words, that he's going to be with the team. So we'll that's a little bit different than saying he will play exactly from what Ward Manuel, but Ward Manuel also is not the the coach. He said Mazi will continue to participate as a member of the team. That's me assuming if he's participating as a member of the team, that he's going to play. That doesn't say that. And Jim Harbaugh, in his statement, is just talking about the character and the respect that he has for the judicial process. And he does talk about Mazi's character, and he's going to say that that's going to be considered. He doesn't say that, oh, yeah, Mazi's playing. What we know is that he's going to continue to participate as a member of the team. That's different than saying that he's playing. Puts it a little bit, it sounds like he's playing. That doesn't mean that he is. So, that's me answering the questions the best I can. Now, let me send a text out to Trevor to see if he said he may have some more information on this, and we'll do that in real time. I should have his number, but instead I just have a Slack here. So I'm going to tell him to call me, and I'm going to have to give him my phone number. And I'm doing that right now. 20 61. Oh, he wants to come on. I'm not sure if I can do that. Maybe I can. I'm going to say I'm not sure. Maybe I can. How about just call? It's right in the middle of it. Let's see. If he calls, he calls. If he doesn't, I think he's watching. Oh, there he is. And here's Trevor McCue, the senior editor of the Maize and Blue Review, who is on the hotline. Trevor, it's good to hear from you this afternoon. Do you hear me okay? And maybe it would be very interesting. Well, I got to just pop him up through. Oh, here, I have to push the right button. There it is. I'm 100% confident that you're on the line now. Trevor, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Adam?
I'm doing pretty good. So the story about Mazi Smith and the felony gun charge, I have read the statement from both Ward Manuel and Jim Harbaugh. So the question about whether he was going to be with the team in Indianapolis has been answered, because Ward Manuel said he will continue to participate as a member of the team. That's not 100% saying that he's going to play. Can you add anything else from what Ward Manuel or Jim Harbaugh had to say in their statements?
Sure. So I can't speak to whether he's going to play or not. We have not gotten any responses on that. So I would make the same type of conclusions that you are making based on the statements. But we did have reporting at Michigan.rivals.com before the statements came out. Just a few details about the entire situation. So number one, Michigan did expect that these charges were going to be dropped. And they continue to expect that. That was a big reason that Mazi was not suspended, or this was not addressed publicly beforehand. The MSU comparisons to the tunnel are out there, obviously. The biggest difference is this was a nonviolent crime without a victim. It did not occur in public with video evidence. So had the charges been dropped, it's something nobody would have known about. So they were simply allowing the legal process to play out and protecting Mazi in that way. So also comparisons to Amani Bates, who was pulled over in a car that did not belong to him, with a gun that had an altered serial number. So in this situation, what we know, or at least what's been reported, is the weapon has been purchased legally by Mazi Smith. He has gone through all of the necessary steps in the process, getting fingerprinting, applying for the license itself. He's completed all the training, etc. There appears to be some sort of sticking point, either with the license being approved days after he was pulled over, or some type of issue with the way he was transporting it, from a shooting range or whatever, where it is being considered a concealed weapon. So that's why you're seeing the statement that you're seeing from Ward and Jim Harbaugh there, because Mazi came forward with all these details and has done everything required, and it's why they expect charges to be dropped. Harbaugh addressed the team when this happened. They were forthright with them and discussed the mistake that Mazi had made and making better choices, and making sure when you're doing things like this, you're crossing your T's and your I's are dotted, is how it was worded to us. So again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if the charges will be outright dropped, or if there will be some type of negotiated misdemeanor transporting a weapon similar to what we saw with Amani Bates. But just to add some background to it, that's kind of why we haven't heard anything until now, and why Ward, Manuel, and Harbaugh made the comments they did regarding Mazi.
Yeah, it's Trevor McCue, the senior editor from the Maize and Blue Review, who is on the line as we talk about this situation, which, you see the headline, felony gun charge, and I don't know about thinking the worst, but you think about, wow, this is a very serious situation. I talked with somebody who didn't want to say, like, the point about when you start talking about a tunnel or Amani Bates, yeah, that's going to happen because it's sports, it's rivalries, and people want to do that. But a case-by-case situation is going to be really important with this, and actually the details in what happened with this situation. The one thing about Bates, and once you read what Ward Manuel had to say in his statement, and Jim Harbaugh, you feel like that, even a situation where you could, there could be a plea or whatever, that, it's not good to have a gun. And I don't have a concealed weapon permit myself, but I know plenty of people, and people that have guns, you have to be very forthright and diligent in everything that you do when you have that weapon, from where you're putting it and the documentation that you have with it. So that's not like, you can say it's an innocent mistake, but that's not a mistake that is that people just overlook and say, oh, well, this is it's not like you forgot your wallet. I don't know, maybe that's, did you forget the documentation or something? You can't do that in a situation like this. So it is serious, but how serious, and listening to you, reading the statements from Ward Manuel, and then also Jim Harbaugh, makes it, you get a little bit better understanding on it.
Yeah, let's be clear. Anytime you're talking about a weapon and a felony charge, it's serious, right? I don't mean to downplay that element of it. But there are more facts to be known, and more information will come out. And yeah, being a responsible gun owner starts with that first word, responsible, right? So clearly Mazi was at minimum irresponsible here. And again, we'll let the legal process play out and see more details as they come out, So yeah, I don't mean to downplay the seriousness of it, because yes, a felony charge is a felony charge. But at this point, Michigan feels very confident in the facts, and Mazi being forthright with those facts and how the legal process is going to play out. And that's the way they're siding. So obviously, if this does not go that way, we'll have a different story on our hands. But in terms of playing Saturday, I don't know. I mean, it's sure, like I said, I'm with you. It feels like it's being suggested that he will. He's at least going to be participating with the team. So we'll see. And then how quickly this is resolved in the legal process in terms of a plea or drop charges or anything like that, I don't know either there. So we're just going to have to let it play out.
There you go. Well, good job. It's not something like it has been. I don't even know when the last time, we talked a little bit about name, image, and likeness, and that's that's like a perception of a negative story. But this, talking about something off the field and a serious thing, there hasn't been a whole lot of this going on when it comes down to Michigan football. It's been an undefeated season. It's been a lot of fun and all of that. And you already mentioned, yourself, like you get the rival fans, and I was getting a text from a friend of mine that's a Michigan State fan who was already like, oh no, this isn't good news. I mean, those are the kind of things like, that happens. You're going to get dragged for it. And then there's going to be a lot of speculation about preferential treatment and, Jim Harbaugh letting this because of the status of the particular player. And I think all of that, not that it's fair game, but it's understandable rivals coming after you when they see a story like this. You would like to say everybody, but Michigan fans would be doing the same thing. So that is something that you deal with. But when it comes down to the brass tacks of this situation, what happened, how serious it is, and if Michigan is going to, have number 58 out on the field, he's certainly participating with the team, according to the athletic director, then, their information, they're going to know even more than you, Trevor, and I. And so, there's a part about that to say, all right, they're sticking their neck out and the program and, the entire university, for this guy. So, that's part of it, as well. And you're going to have naysayers on all of that. Like, oh yeah, it's football. Of course they're going to do that, whatever. So you deal with those things and then you move on.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few things at play there, right? So Michigan has to deal with the truth and the actual charges and the actual process that's playing out. And then there's obviously a huge public relations optics element of this. And that's where the tribalism part bleeds in, where, you're going to see the comments from rivals. And you're 100% right. If it was the other way around, I mean, we know that. We saw what happened with the tunnel incident and some of the comments that were coming from both sides. So sports fandom brings out the worst in some serious real life situations. So not shocked to see any of that. And I do think some of it's understandable. And I would like to know some more facts about, I've heard a couple theories and I'm not in a position to hypothesize on why it took the length of time that it did. I understand, some questions coming from other fan bases about that. And then they're obviously going to question if Mazi Smith does play, Harbaugh's decision, given some of the language that he used, back during the tunnel incident. But again, I don't think you can throw a blanket over this. Yes, you're dealing with football players being charged, but it's just, are they the same thing? No. Again, you're talking about a nonviolent victimless crime that sounds like it might be a documentation issue. Again, not downplaying the seriousness of it, but we're talking about, driving with expired tags relative to a gun, right? Versus a player being injured and assaulted with a helmet being used as a weapon. So I understand everything you said. I understand all elements of it. I understand the fans' frustration from both sides of it. I understand how Michigan is handling it, and I understand why rivals might not be pleased with how Michigan is handling it. So we're getting more facts as we go. And again, the most important thing is Michigan's making the decision they're making based on all the facts they have, which is more than we have. And if it turns out if this goes a different direction, that's where the PR nightmare comes in. So again, we'll let this play out legally and let more of the facts come out, but that's just kind of where we sit today.
The part legally is something that's interesting. I'm not a hunter myself. I don't have a concealed weapons permit. It's been years since I've even, shot a gun, like when I was a teenager, out at some cans, down south, so that's to my extent with firearms. And it gets confusing too. I'd say from people that don't know anything about concealed weapons or anything. And it varies from state to state. So you have people saying, oh, you can carry anywhere and you're going to have this. But if you have a concealed permit license, you can carry when and how you want with very limited exceptions. If you don't have one, you have to transport a pistol unloaded and locked away in the trunk is one of the things. The moment you step into the vehicle, your weapon is concealed unless you have a CPL. You can't carry it in the car. So they're very specific on those kind of things. And so documentation and all that kind of stuff, I could see where it could get tricky. And, that's the part where when you go through those classes that, that they emphasize, hey, like this is not, we're not playing around here. This is very serious. It could, could cost you a lot. So, all right. Hey, Trevor, I don't know why I needed to make that statement to you, but I felt like I did. If there's anything else that you wanted to add in there, go ahead.
No, just I'll build off of what you said because I think it's very true. Owning a weapon is an incredible responsibility. And yes, the laws are complicated, but it is your responsibility to know those laws and to follow them when you make that choice to take on that responsibility. So I'm with you 100%. Regardless of what has happened here, and again, we'll find out the exact details later. But Mazi has made a mistake, and he needs to own that because, yeah, you've chosen to go that route, and you need to know the laws. That's a big part of it, 100%.
All right, Trevor, get back to work. Appreciate you coming on here. And
I was going to say I'm trying to write a Purdue preview here, and then my phone I wasn't expecting this story today. So yeah, we'll get back to it, and we'll talk football soon enough.
I'm getting ready to talk about Purdue coming up here. Nice foreshadowing on this show. We look forward to talking with you again, yes, and reading all your stuff leading up to Saturday's game. Thanks.
Thanks, Dennis.
There he is, Trevor McCue, calling in on the hotline, just through the board here. Okay, let me just take it's a couple things, and we get back to it. People, I know how people are. I already saw some of the comments that I just hit one of them that said, let's move on. And it's like, I get it. Like, you're a Michigan fan, you know, a lot of people are like, look, I don't want any negativity. I don't want any of this. He's participating with the team. Let's move it on. And here's account 22 saying we don't know enough details to logically talk about it, but you're still going to talk about it. That's not going to stop people from, I mean, that's the way it works. And so you're not going to see me, doing too much of a guessing game, but I understand how this works through the public. And I understand, what, how coaches and athletic directors and universities deal with these things and players. So put all that experience and then lay it out there for you. So I hope you understand that, like account 22. But we will now move forward, and I will emphasize to a few people throughout the rest of the show that if they've missed anything that I had to say on Smith and the big story, that they can go back and listen and watch the first 25 minutes of this broadcast, which we dealt with it. All right, with that, we do move on. I have up on the screen for your entertainment a gambling site that put the college football playoff lines for just Michigan games. And, we do know that Michigan is a 16.5-point favorite against Purdue coming up on Saturday night. But what about the rest of the teams that potentially Michigan could see when they make the college football playoff, which seems like a foregone conclusion that even if they would lose somehow, we don't want that to happen, but they could, and it still seems like they would get into the college football playoffs. I don't know if these are adjusted. They would adjust. I mean, it's a fluid situation. You never know what's going to happen. You wake up tomorrow and, there's something like happened today. So you never know who's going to be in, who's going to be out. But as of yesterday, Odds Shark had these specific lines to Michigan upcoming potential opponents. One, and the one that I've talked about all week, and I think everybody can recite it chapter and verse about who they want to play and why. You see it spelled out, at least with the gambling lines. You want Michigan to play TCU. Michigan would be close to a double-digit favorite, 9.5-point favorite against the Horned Frogs. Should Michigan see TCU in a semifinal? That's why people want TCU to win on Saturday and for Michigan to stay at number 2. That doesn't mean you get an automatic pass into the championship game, but man, being a 16.5-point favorite against Purdue, being a 9.5-point favorite against TCU, yeah, you can't take those teams lightly. You're playing for a championship, but just looking at it from the Vegas lines and looking at it from that perspective, you think, man, Michigan's got such a chance here if things play out like they very easily could, and how they are right now, that Michigan could let's say easily that they've got a really good chance to get to the championship game on January 9th in Los Angeles, in Inglewood. Look at that. And then if TCU would lose and USC would win tomorrow night, I was a little bit surprised at this because I thought Michigan would have been a bigger favorite against TCU than USC, but that's not what OddsShark says. They have installed Michigan as a 12.5-point favorite against USC. So so Michigan not only is in a great spot where they sit right now, if things play out with, how it is right now, and let's just recite it really easy. Georgia, Michigan, TCU, and USC wins, Michigan is likely going to play TCU. Now, if TCU loses and all of other things happen, USC is going to move into that number 3 spot, and that's where Michigan would play USC. That would be a nice spot for Michigan too. Either semifinal against either TCU or USC is what Michigan wants, and this is the reason. Double-digit favorites nearly against the Horned Frogs, and then a 12.5-point favorite against the Trojans. That sounds good. You always put into place that you got to be careful what you wish for and all that kind of stuff. I get that, but meanwhile, you do have a rooting interest in what's going to happen tomorrow night and what's going to happen Saturday at noon, even before you get to Michigan's game at 8 o'clock against Purdue. And these other two lines here, Michigan would be favored by a point, 1 single point, against Ohio State on a neutral field out in Glendale after, Michigan destroyed it by 22 points on the road when they were an 8-point underdog. You see how much closer of a situation that would be if Michigan had to play Ohio State again. And then if they do get to, I don't know if they're thinking that this would be a potential semifinal or this is just what the number is. Even if they get to the championship game, I would imagine that it would change after you see both teams play 2 more games. But as it sits right now, Georgia would be in a 5.5-point favorite against Michigan. But, the way I look at that, and I look at what's going on here, is that it's not too good to be true, but this thing's looking real good for Michigan. And, they got to take care of business against Purdue. They have to take care of business in a semifinal. But just even last year and the year before, when we talked about recruiting and you talked about the Big Ten against the SEC, and, everybody was, is hopeful and, you always, which is true, you say, anything can happen in one game. But the reality when it came to the recruiting stars, I thought it was a pretty big wake-up call against Georgia last year where that cold water came in. It was just like, wow, But that's not what's happening right now. Michigan has 2 very beatable opponents before they get to a championship game, and that's not the same Georgia team that Michigan faced last year. Yeah, they'll be a little bit of an underdog, likely, as we sit here right now. But a chance to win it all against Georgia with, Michigan, we're talking about January the 9th. That is it's almost 6 weeks away. You think about healing up a hand and a knee and the possibility of, being full go. Hopefully, I know there's 2 games to be played in there. So, you cross your fingers on all that, but I could have just come out and said, man, Michigan's got a real nice road here and they've got a golden opportunity to do something they haven't done in 25 years. And you're living it. You are living it right now, Michigan fans. And there's some ways that, where I said it's not too good to be true, but it almost feels like, you can say, man, this thing is going. And it was kind of a reminder this morning when you saw the Mazi Smith news. And if you're somebody that's just tuning in saying, well, you're not going to handle the big news. I handled it for the first 25 minutes. You can go back to the beginning of the show and, you can hear my thoughts and everything that I had to say about that situation. And if you are just tuning in, there's been a statement by Jim Harbaugh and Ward Manuel where Mazi Smith is going to stay as a participant, as a member of the team. And so we'll see what that ends up meaning in terms of playing Saturday and beyond, but that's where it's at. But there's a part where there's a lot of people, you don't know how to act when Michigan's 12-0. It's never happened. 97, they were 12. Like, it just doesn't happen. So, here you are. Just take stock with how you're feeling. You're getting ready with a great chance to go back-to-back in back-to-back against the Buckeyes, and then back-to-back Big Ten titles is what you're hoping for on Saturday night, which is really achievable. I mean, all of those things, and what that happened in 2003 and 2004. So it's been 17 years since Michigan's went back-to-back. But hell, it had been over 20 years since they'd won at Ohio State. A lot of things. And it's been 25 years since they won the national championship, and they got a shot. When you get into the offseason and you talk about, beating Ohio State back-to-back, and you talk about, the winning the Big Ten again, you talk about getting to the college football playoffs, all that stuff sounds, even when I was saying it, even though I thought Michigan was going to be good this year, it sounds a little, I don't know, say homer, it just sounds a little bit like, wow, that's quite an achievement. But it's a funny game, and we play this. It's not a fun game. It's a funny game, and we all play it at some point. And it's that game about, what if, you had a genie? And I'm going to play it for you right here. If I had a genie in the summer and that genie said, would you take right now, before Michigan played any games? So in August, if that genie appeared and said, all right, you can have Michigan go 12-0. They can beat Ohio State. They can win the Big Ten back-to-back. They can go to the college football playoff, and not only can they go to the college football playoff, but they can win the semifinal and get to the championship game. But in that championship game, they would fall. Would you take that? And if that was presented to me by the genie in the offseason, I would have said yes. And I think many of you would have said yes as well. As you just think about it, and even if you're like, no, I'm not doing that, Michigan could win it all. It was nice of you to, stick by the team like that, but I would bring you over and say, hey, look, just think about it for a second. You're offering a perfect season, 12-0, another Big Ten championship, a victory against Ohio State in the horseshoe. Just think about what a great season that would be. Going to Indy again, going to the college football playoff, all the way to New Year's Eve, all the way to January 9th, unscathed. You're not going to take that right now? And I think I could talk you into it. I could have talked you into it. Maybe there's a couple of you Michigan fans like, nope, I'm not taking that. No deal. Wow, no deal. No deal. But those no deal people sitting here today, if that genie popped back up and was like, what about that deal now? I would say, no deal. I would say no deal to Michigan getting to the championship game, right now. Winning Saturday, winning the college football playoff, but then losing in the championship game, no deal. I would have taken that deal in August before the season. So that's kind of where I'm at and how I'm feeling about it. I haven't taken any feedback, and I want to do that. I always say, I could sit here and talk at this screen into this microphone all day long, and I give you my feelings about what's happening, but I like to hear where Michigan fans are at with the Wolverines and how they're feeling about it. And so with that, I am now going to read some comments. Matt's looking forward to Saturday. So's Jason. GFF is talking about JJ McCarthy. We will get to him, JJ, tomorrow. I moved some things around. Detroit Sports Talk. GFF there's a lot of Go Blues, and so I don't mind. Like it looks good on the screen. I'm just going to put a couple of these. One Scoop John, who has a Wolverine, and he's got a Go Blue, and then he's got the emoji of the Michigan emoji. Let's see. People weighing in because we did for the first 25 minutes talk about Mazi. So people were weighing in on Mazi, and I can understand that with the gum charge and everything else. A couple racy sites want me to check out their hot photo, and hey, nothing against your site or anything else, but I'm gonna pass right now from taking. I'm just gonna take a pass right now when it comes down to that. Let's see here. We've moved beyond that part. Matt saying he's still talking about. I thought we were beyond the concealed weapons part, but not yet. People are talking about their own states and their own situations, and I get that. Like it can be somewhat of a difficult situation when you're talking about, especially if you're somebody. What I have found with the people that are into guns, I'm like, they know chapter and verse about everything, like where they went to, you know, uh, get their permit, the training that they had to go through, just how much they appreciate being able to protect their family, to how much safer they feel themselves being out there in the world that we live in, and all these kind of things. People are, they like themselves some guns and everything that goes through them, and the people that have all the people that I know, which is most of my friends, they're into them, they love them, and they're very responsible. I think when they come down to them, I haven't seen anything different about that. And here we go. People are ready to move on. We are moving on. Richard talking about lesson learned. Let's move on. Yeah. GFS ready to talk about some football, and Todd's talking about beating Purdue. Yeah, Richard echoing it. He's about moving on and talking about Purdue. Account 22 says Purdue is bad. I slogged through the highlights yesterday. It was a rough watch. We're going to talk about Purdue in just 1 second. If I can get through some more of the feedback here. And thing is, I don't agree with this, Shane. It's good to see Shane up there. Shane, I haven't yet realized that you put money up there. I haven't yet realized that where that goes or what that's all about. I like it, as somebody told me I would, but I don't agree with what you're saying here. You're saying Angelique Shingelis, typical, always trying to stir pots. That there couldn't be anything further from the truth through that. I know I've known Angelique for, I don't know, 30 years, and Angelique's a professional. And, sometimes that requires having to write stories that, aren't nice. Well, I'd say aren't just, completely pro Michigan, completely, bathing Michigan, or just completely all, hey, everybody's great. Because sometimes things happen that aren't so great, like this situation. And so it wasn't even an opinion piece from her. She was just stating the facts. So you saying that she is trying to stir the pot, maybe you're talking about. It's hard to confuse, like if you'd have said the Detroit News, typical, always trying to stir the pot. Like you could probably, then you're talking about a litany of different reporters and columnists. You can say, okay, you're probably talking about so and so. But specifically, when you say Angelique, there's no truth to what you're writing there. She's actually, I would say, never trying to stir the pot. She doesn't stir the pot at all. She is a journalist, and she has to write stories sometimes that you might not like, but she's not doing any pot stirring. So I don't know. It's interesting that you would put that. There's a lot of names that you could have put up there and said, oh, pot stirrer. Oh, he's trying to stir something up. The one dude, Saban, whatever, Monterez, back in the day, the late Drew Sharp, you'd put out and say, oh, yeah, those guys are definitely stirring the pot. There's a couple talk show hosts, Beard, Mikey V. Yeah, those guys are pot stirrers. Absolutely. Those are totally pot stirrers. Account 22 is talking about these spoilers. Richard saying, we will impose our will on Purdue. Todd's been watching ESPN. He says they're figuring how to get 2 SEC teams in at this point. Broken pencils, crumpled papers. Well, the path's pretty easy. I mean, you don't have to sit around. It doesn't take genius math skills or really anything, football acumen. If TCU loses, Ohio State is getting into the college football playoff. Take it from me. I guarantee it. If TCU and USC loses, Ohio State and wait for it, Alabama are then getting into the college football playoff. And TCU and USC are just little 2.5, 3-point favorites. So, they can lose those games. I hope they don't. Michigan has an out. They've got a chance for both of those teams to win. And then if just one of them win, they get to play the other one, which is great. You can ask for a lot of things as a Michigan fan. Todd, let's go ahead. Ask for everything you want. 5 stars and undefeated seasons, back-to-back Big Ten championships, winning in Columbus by 22 points. Ask for anything you want. And then ask about getting to the college football playoff. And then you can ask about being a double-digit favorite against one of those teams. It would have been nice if Michigan would have had a chance to play Cincinnati last year and then just let anything happen against, let everything hang out against Georgia in a championship game. It didn't happen. But they get not only one shot for those 2 teams to win, to play one of them, they get 2 shots. Because if just one of them, they both win, they're good. If just one of them wins, they're good. If they both lose, that's when it gets to be oh, no. You got a deal. Now you've got to go somewhere that you really don't. I'm not going there. I've talked about it a little bit. But I'm not going there until it happens. And I'm talking about having to play Ohio State and having Alabama in there. It would look pretty, when they say you got the big 2 conferences and the rest, if it ends up being Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Alabama, the networks, buddy, they're just going to love it. But everybody outside of SEC and Big Ten country isn't. But the networks will love it. These are some juicy matchups. Like I said yesterday, the networks and the majority of the college football nation, besides Michigan fans and TCU fans, everybody else wants TCU to lose. They don't want TCU in there. They want them out. USC's not bad. Now I am repeating myself, which is, it's okay sometimes, but I feel like I've mentioned that scenario a lot. Here's Jesse. We haven't seen Jesse in a while. He's talking about Vegas. Vegas said OSU was an 8.5-point favorite over Michigan. So how accurate are they? Yeah, that's right. That's right, Jesse. I was looking at a guy in the media, NFL type, Albert Breer. You might be familiar with his work. But he's from Ohio State, so you might be familiar with his work and say, I'm not listening to that Buckeye, even if it's with pro stuff. But I used to listen to his podcast a lot. I don't know what happened to it. For some reason, I stopped listening to it a couple of years ago. But he's pretty good with the NFL. Talks about, all the situations going on with what's going on, in the NFL. But once in a while, it would come up like he's an Ohio State guy. And he had a tweet about during the game. And it was it's something that I've saved and that I'm going to talk about. I was going to talk about tomorrow. Let me see if I put it up on the screen. Give you a little foreshadowing. No, I didn't. So I'll wait on that. That's a tease for tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, Vegas, not that I'm, backing Vegas too much, but don't get too, don't knock Vegas too much. As soon as you start knocking Vegas or you think you got them figured out, it's like, what does Vegas know? Vegas knows a lot. Vegas got a lot of big, shiny buildings, and they pay a lot of money for those fountains, and they pay millions of dollars to all of these stars to just be on TV and say, hey, why don't you bet? And then everybody's like thinking, hey, why not bet? It's easy. It's not that easy. And most people lose. Almost everybody loses. There's a few here and there you don't lose, but I talk about that sometimes. And people are like, I don't care what you say. And I get that. Here's some more concealed weapon talk. There's Sam. I just hit the like button and I feel better for it. You know what, Sam? In the world of YouTube, that like button is some awesome currency for the Maize and Blue review and for this particular show. And I do want to say this. I don't often go back, tell everybody subscribe to the podcast, hit the like button. I have told people that listen to the podcast, if they can leave comments on the podcast, the one that they listen to, those go a long way from, pushing it up the different rankings when it comes to podcasts. So if you're somebody that exclusively listens to podcasts and you can leave a comment, boy, thank you so much. Hitting the like button on the YouTube, I think it's free. You go over there and hit it. That also helps our visibility and moves us up. This has been a good week for the Good Afternoon Michigan football VCast and podcast. It's not a surprise. I mean, Michigan's 12-0. If you'd have told me before the season, like, how do you think the show will be going if Michigan goes 12-0 and they go down to Ohio State and they pound them? How do you think you'll do? And I was, I think there'll be a lot of people, hopefully a lot of people. I don't know, whatever. It's always relative, a lot of people. But yeah, the like button is something I like. For some reason, I like these glasses, and there's tape on them. But out of all, I've got like 10 different pairs of reading glasses. And I don't really like these necessarily how they look, but they feel the best. Okay, let's get to some other things. And that includes not those lines, but the Spoilermakers. Let's break down the statistics a little bit. If you just look at the 9 conference games, this is how Michigan stacks up with Purdue. Michigan had the second-ranked offense in the Big Ten, averaging 34.7 points per game. Purdue checked in at number 4, averaging 25.6 points per game for the West champs. How about defensively? Michigan, number 1. The stats. You probably know this because you look at them even nationally in the Big Ten. If you like stats and like, hey, Michigan's number 1 here, Michigan run defense, Michigan scoring defense, just like Michigan being 12-0 and being ranked number 2 and already seems like they got a free pass to the college football playoff and that they get all the postseason honors and all that stuff just going to continue to roll in. Man, the stats, Michigan is up there in almost everything. Like, you can just sit back and you're like, wow, Michigan's number 1 in this, they're number 1 in that. I mean, you can sit around bathing in good Michigan statistics for weeks. And here's one of those stats that feels really good to jump in on. Defense, Michigan, number 1. They average just giving up 15 points per game in the conference this year. That's why they're sitting where they're at. You know how many points Michigan allowed to Ohio State in the second half? The best offense in the country, not just in the Big Ten, in the country. And they had, if he wasn't, Caleb Williams probably was the leading candidate for the Heisman Trophy heading into Saturday, especially after what he did Saturday night. But it was pretty close between C.J. Stroud and Caleb Williams for the Heisman Trophy. Michigan's defense picked Stroud off twice and allowed Ohio State just 3 little measly points in the second half of that game on Saturday on the road. You got to give it up. I am going to give it up. The Michigan defense, I wondered, they had the schedule and then, the rest of the schedule really set up really nice for them. They had to go to Iowa, but what did Iowa really have? And all the way through. And the defense, man, slamming the door shut like they did in the second half, but they're legit. Michigan's defense is legit. They have been proven to be legit, and they were number 1. 15 points. Meanwhile, Purdue gives up 24.3 points per game, which was number 7 in the Big Ten, 7th in the Big Ten. Not so hot. But if you look at Purdue's season, their best win was against Illinois, and it wasn't so long ago. And we know Illinois's got a pretty good defense. They scored 31 points at Illinois. So you got to say, you got to watch out for that offense. You got to watch out for their quarterback. He can really throw it. And all the way back to the beginning of the season, week 1, Purdue lost to Penn State. It was a good game. They only lost by 4 points to Penn State, 35-31. Those were the 2 big games that I put up looking through their schedule. But something that you're going to see for sure on Saturday is that the Spoilermakers have been, under Jeff Brom, they have played 3 top 5 teams. In fact, they played 3 top 3 teams, top 3 ranked teams that were ranked either second in the country or third in the country. They're 3-0 under Jeff Brom against those teams. You maybe remember a couple of years ago when Rondell Moore put up 194 all-purpose yards and had 2 touchdowns, and Purdue won that game, blew Ohio State out. Number 2, Ohio State, they blew them out 49-20. That was impressive by the Spoilermakers. And then last year, and this is where it feels a little bit, you say, history and all that, who's on the team from 2018? I don't know, maybe nobody. The quarterback was Blau, who was the QB for the Lions for a little bit until he got cut this year. Remember that? But most of the Rondell Moore plays for the Cards. But last year, the Spoilermakers did it twice. They beat Iowa in Iowa City 24-7. David Bell, who's now with the Browns, had 240 yards in that game, and Iowa threw 4 interceptions. I would suggest not throwing 4 interceptions for Michigan on Saturday, and not letting any of their wide receivers go for 240 yards. I feel good that they won't let that happen. But also, Michigan State was ranked number 3 in the country last year. And Michigan State went down to West Lafayette, and they got popped 49-29. And the QB of that game is going to be the QB for the Boilermakers on Saturday, Aiden O'Connell. He ripped up the Michigan State secondary for, wait for it, 536 yards. 536 yards against that Spartan defense. David Bell had 217 in that game. And so Aiden O'Connell can throw it around the yard. I was watching a show called The Rally. It's on at the same time as the Sports Center on Bally's. It's kind of like their Sports Center. And the dude that went to Ohio State, I forget his name, he's pretty good on there. Big guy. But he was making the point about the game, and he said that Jeff Brom has 30 trick plays that he will have installed ready for Michigan on Saturday. And I thought, wow, 30? Like you have your regular offense, but then they have 30 trick plays. Like I know Michigan had the pop pass, jump pass, with Mullings last week, but 30 trick plays. So I don't know. I'm expecting some trickery from the Spoilermakers on Saturday, and they should feel confident when that's going to be put up on the screen. Gus Johnson, hey Joel, watch out, partner. Look at this, and they'll go to that. So that is something that they will talk about for sure. And my heart goes out to the Aiden O'Connell, who lost his older brother last week. I'm sure they're going to talk about that during the game as well. He announced, I don't know what the cause of death was, but he passed away just, what was it, last week or the week before? So, I mean, he's got a really heavy heart. He's going to be out there playing, and I'm sure that they will at least maybe go down to the sideline. Allison Williams. It's not the All-American girl, Jenny Taft, anymore, but Allison Williams is stepping in. I said tomorrow. I meant Saturday at Lucas Oil Field, and I'm sure she'll have that story about the O'Connell family. So there you go. That's Purdue. I was going to say in a nutshell, but that's not really. Maybe it is a nutshell. I'll say it. That's Purdue in a nutshell. They've had some success against top 3 teams twice last year. They like to throw it around. They've got a quarterback who has thrown for over 500 yards in a game. Did it last year against Michigan State. And Jeff Brom, he likes to take chances. And, they are in the state of Indiana for whatever that's worth. Should be worth some fans, be able to go, hey, let's just go ahead and drive on down. So, that's it. That's where I'm at. Richard says, I'll read the rest of the feedback here. Richard says, this Michigan team is the best we've had in my lifetime. Championship mound. That's quite a statement, Richard, but I don't know how old you are, but I understand where you're coming from. Mark says, the game will lose its importance and charm if we have to beat Ohio State for a third time in 14 months, making them our bitch for sure. I thought a lot about that, and they're going to do away with the divisions, and Michigan's still going to have to play Ohio State. If they already had scrapped the divisions this year, Michigan would have played. They'd have already known that they were playing Ohio State in the Big Ten title game heading into the game. So that is going to diminish it. It is going to diminish it a little bit. But, in the pros, when, it's tough to say in the pros because the Lions, they've been Green Bay's bitch for 50 years and more than 50 years, for 60 years. It's crazy how long they've been. Green Bay owns them. And so, I don't know, the Lions, they play all these teams twice and they're rivals, but all the teams own the Lions. The Lions haven't won. I mean, there's only 4 freaking teams in their division and they play them twice. And the last time that the Lions have won the division, a hell of a long time ago. Was it 95, 93, 30 years? I mean, it's, but the point here is that teams play twice in the NFL, and it's still, it's a game and it's still a rival. And no, you don't pack everything in and it doesn't have the meaning of, wow, you lose this game and everything's over. And just think about it. If they go to 12 teams, it's not going to be, oh my God, if we lose this game, the season's over. It's going to be like, yeah, might not have home field advantage. You might, be down and have to play the first week and you don't have a bye. But, hey, you get a chance to see him again. So, I think it's going to be okay. I think about it in basketball. I go back to the 1989 season where Michigan lost to Ohio State and they lost to Illinois. And did they play them twice? They didn't beat them at all in the regular season, but then they didn't have a Big Ten tournament. But then they played both of those teams in the NCAA tournament. They beat them. Yeah, football, basketball comparison. Scrap that one. Scrap it. Here's the coach, Antoine. He doesn't mind playing TCU or USC. When it comes down to it, you're going to have to go through the best anyways. Here's Antoine, who loves playing the easiest teams out there. He likes the road. He likes the easy road. I know that he wants to play TCU and USC. What would have been a surprise, Antoine, if you would have said, you know what, I hope I want to see Ohio State again. I wouldn't mind seeing Ohio State or Alabama. And I want Georgia. No, we've gotten to the point where Antoine is like, he knows you can't have a cakewalk to the 97. I'm sorry. I'm reading something. You can't have a cakewalk to the championship. Although you can make a case that maybe this is a cakewalk. All right, let's get to some of these other feedback. It's funny how much things change in a week. The other day, a guy tweeted me saying the game was close late in the fourth quarter before you guys pulled away, hanging their hat on being close. It was close in the fourth quarter. It was a 4-point game. That's where I've thought about this a few times, that I think in 5, 10, it's good to go back, because I can remember a lot of went back in 97. Like when I think about 97, Colorado and just how fast the Michigan defense was in that opener. I think about the game against Baylor, and I remember, sitting in the press box and watching Charles Woodson live, and Woodson coming up from his corner spot all the way under the backfield and closing on this back. And I was like, man, that guy is so fast. And I hope every time that the other team had the ball, I hope that they threw at number 2, because I thought, man, this would be great. Throw at Woodson. I remember that. And then they played Notre Dame, and Michigan turned the ball over 3 times in the fourth quarter against Notre Dame, and the defense had to come up big, and Michigan had to win the game. And for where I was sitting, I got to point to this, because I'm going to say that there's things that you remember forever. Wherever the sun was, Tommy Hendricks had an interception, Michigan safety, and he had his arms kind of laying down by the goal line. And I was on the photo deck up at the Michigan press box, and I had a great view of that pick. Maybe I would have been down on the field with the sun going down. It's kind of, that's the one thing, your mind can start playing tricks on you. You start thinking things. But I do remember that. I remember the Iowa game, Tim Dwight, running one back right before halftime. Michigan going to halftime thinking, whoa, this is going to be a tough one. You keep going through all those. The Ohio State game, I remember a lot about that game. And so the point is, going back to Saturday, I'll remember the Cornelius Johnson 69-yard touchdown, the 75-yard touchdown from Cornelius Johnson, the 45-yard touchdown to open the third quarter, Colston Loveland. Remember J.J. McCarthy running the ball in on a long drive, would not be denied. And then I remember in that fourth quarter, like you're talking about, Adam, the fourth quarter, when Michigan was up 4 and it's first down, and I'm thinking Michigan's going to run the ball. They're looking for a long drive. And I don't know if it was Harbaugh or Weissmore. It was either Weissmore or Harbaugh called a bomb, and they shot it straight down the field, deep shot. Kojo was right there. There was even 2 guys on him, but the ball was thrown so well. Kojo and he would have caught it, and they had to interfere with him. And I was like, look at this is what we'll be talking about JJ tomorrow. All those deep shots and everything that we're talking about with the passing game. You say, the confidence, how much confidence is involved in chemistry with the receivers. I wish that guy wouldn't, out of all the things, I wish that guy wouldn't have interfered with Kojo, because throwing a bomb there and having Kojo and have it, it just stuck right in there. He would have caught that. That would have been like, wow. As it was a wow play, 15-yard penalty. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. Adam continuing on, saying 5 days ago they thought they would trounce us. Now they're hanging their hat on being close. That's right. Richard saying that this is a better rounded team than 97. Richard, you're throwing out the gold standard of Michigan football and asking me to comment on how would the 2022 team, is it a better team? Is it more well-rounded than the 97 team? Wow. Well, if you think about the 97 team, the first thing that comes to mind is they had the Heisman Trophy winner. And then I think, if Blake Corum would have played Saturday, I think that, I don't know, Donovan Edwards had 200 yards. So Corum, if he had 200 yards, I think the way Caleb Williams played, probably. But, he could have won the Heisman Trophy. He was close. So Heisman Trophy, pretty close. You got to say, hey, if Blake didn't get hurt against Illinois. That's not too big of a reach. The 97 team, when it says here that the offense was lacking, as much as you say the offense was lacking, they had a great offensive line. They had a Hall of Famer in Hutchinson at guard, Backus, who was a first-round pick, Jansen, who was a second-round pick. I mean, they had a pretty who was the center? Zach Adamy, Mo Williams, I think, was on that offensive line. He was in the pro. They had a pro offensive line. And Greasy was. You can say whatever you want about Greasy, but Greasy was drafted and played in the NFL. They had 3 backs. They didn't have a 1,000-yard back, but the combination of Chris Howard, the blur Clarence Williams, and the freshman, the Louisiana touchdown machine, aka the A-Train Anthony Thomas, a pretty good trio of backs. Ty Streets wasn't too shabby. Both tight ends played in the NFL. The Mark Campbell played for the Saints, and Tooman went to the Steelers. And that's not too shabby of an offense, actually. They were conservative because they weren't a juggernaut offensively, but they had a lot of talent. And then defensively, I think everybody on that defense played in the pros. Everyone. Marcus Ray, did he have a cup of coffee with the Raiders? Who was the corner opposite that had the pick? Andre Weathers. I'm not sure if he went to the pros. He had a great pick against Ohio State. I think did he have a pick six in that game? So Weathers may not have, and I don't know if Ray actually played for the Raiders, but I think everybody else, Dahani, Gold, the entire front wall. James Hall didn't get drafted, but as a free agent, played for the Lions. I think we're. I don't think the 97 offense was lacking. What are we talking about? Pro. Look, they were a championship team. A championship team. But I'll tell you this: if this team goes out and they've got a chance, I mean, they're right there with them. It's not over yet. I'm still not, just discounting the 97 team compared to this one, but I get it. And statistically, the defense, even though this Michigan team gave up 15 yards, that 97 team, they gave up even less yards scoring per game. So, yeah, this defense is great, but were they as good as 97? This team has to prove more, because once Michigan beat Ohio State in 97, they were on to the championship game. Then they just had to beat Washington State. Michigan now has to beat Purdue, which they should. And then they have to go to the semifinal, and, who knows? They could be a double-digit favorite in that game. They got a nice path right now, but this team has a tougher road ahead of them. And it looks like, we don't know who they're going to play in that championship game, that they'd have a tougher championship game. Nothing against Ryan Leaf and company. But, it's different now. And, you're talking to, now I call myself an old guy. I'm old enough where I could go back and remember 97 and, and just how good that team was. And it can be a difficult for folks that get older to pass the torch to it. So I'm factoring that in, like, oh, don't compare Charles Woodson. No, you compare them. Like, these are undefeated teams and teams with a chance to win the championship. This team's got to complete the task. They could be up to it. They have a tougher road. But I'm not ready today to put the 2022 Michigan team above the 97 team. Man. Somebody gave me some feedback, and I tell people to, send me feedback. Guys, like, you spend way too much time answering questions. And I spent a long time answering that particular question. But that's a good question to think about. 97 to 2022, this year's team to the 97 championship team. So, I was going to tell the guy, I didn't get a chance to, I didn't respond to him. But if you think that, he said, your podcast is way too long and you answer questions for too long. And I thought, well, if you don't like the question, I listen to a lot of podcasts myself. You just fast forward. And if you look at the description, if it's either the podcast or the VCast, it says what I talk about in there. So if you're looking at it, and it'll say in today's podcast, it will say 97 compared to 2022. And if you look at that and you're like, I don't want to hear him going on about that comparison for 10 minutes? Let's go to the next topic. You didn't want to hear Mazi Smith being talked about for 25 minutes? Well, you know what you can do? Zip. Skip right ahead. I do that. I also listen to what's his name? Sometimes I listen to him. Russo, the Mad Dog, does a show. And his open is like 4 minutes. He plays this Springsteen song. He goes on and on, hey, and then he doesn't get to anything. He's always talking about, yeah, here's his producer. And so, you know what I do? I just start it 4 minutes in, and he goes through all the little particulars, and then 4 minutes in, he starts talking. I don't know. I got that one. You get it. Let's see. Adam likes talking about this. He's got good points and comments and questions. He's now looking back to Saturday's game and saying, if they played 5 quarters, we would have scored 2 or 3 more touchdowns. Yeah, you know what, Adam? Yeah. If they would have played 6 quarters, they may have beat them by 100. I think I have said it now at least 10 times. I'm going to say it for the 11th. Whatever Michigan does at the half, I want them to bottle it up and sell it, because I will buy it. And I don't know how much they're going to charge. That's my thought for, Michigan doesn't want the donors giving money to recruits for the name, image, and likeness. They don't want signing bonuses. They don't want, the whole road that we've gone down a million times. Okay. How about you guys go ahead and bottle up whatever you were cooking up at halftime, and then give it to me, and I will sell it, and I will give all the money to the recruits, or just a small fee I will take for myself, and I'll still make a lot of money. Who says no? Even if it says on the bottom, like, hey, There's really nothing in here. This is just a Michigan. This is just a Michigan NI name, image, and likeness type situation. But we're doing it. We're going to give it a try. Fancy bottle. Halftime. All right. Okay. Mark wasn't here all game long, all day long, all game long. Adam, who I'm not sure how many shows that he's been in on, his messages keep popping up here. Eric All said, finna to come back, which I believe that means he is coming back. Here's somebody talking about Stephen Toski being the GOAT, no cap. Yeah, he is. You know, Toski is. He is the GOAT. He knows how to take the film and push pause and draw arrows to what's happening next, and then he'll draw a circle, and then he'll go in slow motion, and then he'll rewind it, and then he will do it, and he's good at it. I'm with you on that. You know, I think that we could just sit around talking about Michigan for another 2 hours here. Mark wants to talk about Corum's NFL stock. He should come back and win the Heisman and seal the deal. Eric All coming back. You know, let me just let me comment on that. I saw what was his name from Michigan State? K9, Kenneth Walker. He was drafted in the second round last year. I would think it would depend on where Corum, let's just say that he goes to the NFL. But do I think that he could be drafted in the second round? I don't think he would be a first round pick. You know, running backs, it's tough to get drafted in the first round, but the second round, second or third round seems very reasonable to me as I look at it. And a lot will depend on, it always does. You know, he goes out and runs a 4.4. You know, I'll tell you that he's going to get drafted in the second round. But the point that I was looking at is the money, guaranteed money that K9 got last year from the Seahawks. And it's about, you know, he would have to get a pretty good NIL deal to stay around, considering the kind of money that K9 got. However, you know, Michigan with name, image, and likeness, you know, if they can keep a player or two or three or I don't know, four that might otherwise be a third or fourth rounder, in this case, you know, maybe Blake Corum. And if they can give these guys the kind of money, it doesn't have to be equal, I don't know, but can they make it worth their while for these guys to stay around? And why I am encouraged by this is that, again, what Jared Wengler said in the offseason, like, no, Michigan, they don't want to get down in the weeds. And even though nobody cares, even though everybody else is doing it, and there's but Michigan doesn't want to give signing bonuses. They don't want to do it. It's a hill that they're on, and you know, but he said that they could get a lot of money once they're here and they stay. Well, these are the examples. Pay the man his money. Give him some money. Keep these guys around. That would be the counter to the name, image, and likeness. That's what I want to see Michigan do. I want to see him get Zach Zinter and bring him back with a healthy payday. I want to see him give Corum a boatload of money, you know, to come back. I know they have other options out there. The kid from Wisconsin, the kid from Stanford. I know all that's out. All of these things are in play. Some guys just want to go to the pros. And yeah, Michigan might not be able to give $5 million guaranteed like Corum might get if he's drafted. But this is what I'm thinking about with name, image, and likeness and the recruiting season, which is now just, 3 weeks to the national signing or the early signing period. February 1st, the National Signing Day. I'm waiting for them to, pull something off here. I'm also thinking that it's not a real fun thing to think about. I'm thinking that if in 3 weeks Michigan ends up like the 25th or 30th ranked recruiting class, and they're in the freaking college football playoff 2 years in a row, the old saying that the winning takes care of everything, except paying guys money up front, is going to be put to the test. And like I said, I'm not upset because Michigan, taking the lay of the land and being patient and strategically going about name, image, and likeness, and maybe they're going to give the money to the guys that are on the team, and that's going to be worth more than a 4-star, maybe even a 5-star. Getting guys to come back. That's not a bad strategy. I like the strategy. We'll see how that works, but I'm telling you right now, in 3 weeks, if Michigan has a 29th ranked recruiting class, people are going to be freaking out. Not me. People, because I said, hey, sacrifice a year and see how that goes. But part of the sacrifice is that Michigan fans are going to be in meltdown mode. And it's going to be understandable. And so sometimes you have to see it and you have to feel the pressure to say, okay, we've went out there. Winning hasn't taken care of everything. Actually, these guys, they want their guaranteed money. So we're either going to have to give them guaranteed money. We're going to have to tell the boosters that, yeah, we'd like you giving us money, but you're going to have to give some extra money to somebody else. And we're going to have to play that game. And nothing is going to leverage would-be recruits than a 30th ranked recruiting class, and Michigan fans being in the college football playoff and saying, what the hell? So I also think Jim Harbaugh can get in there and whatever his next move will be from transformational and transactional, he's going to be like, we're going to have to get a little bit into the transactional, I think, if we're going to want to get some stars, or we're just going to be 3-star you. Well, we'll see. I think there'll be some fire lit. There'll be some leverage. We're seeing how that all plays out. Remember, Michigan's, they got a business school. Like, they've got a lot of people that are strategizing. Now, I would like to be in some of those meetings and say, well, what about this? Forget all that rules. I'm not just kidding about that. Forget about this integrity, doing it the right way. I mean, like, those are the things that, like, they're the buzzwords, about. But there's ways around that. It's business. It's college football. It's a dog-eat-dog world. Recruiting's a dirty business. It needs to be a little transactional, a little bit more. But Harbaugh, he's already in the catbird seat. What he wants, he should get. When Harbaugh picks up the phone and says, I want a bunch of money going to this 5-star, the money should be going to him. There shouldn't be anything. So it's going to, I think it's good news ahead. All right, I've done enough here today, I think. Today we were going to talk about J.J. McCarthy and where he's going. Tomorrow we'll talk about it. It changed like 10 minutes before the show with the news with Mazi Smith. We'll have more, the latest on that situation. Thanks to Trevor McCue from the Maize and Blue Review, our senior editor. He's working on a story right now that I'm sure, and the discussion and debate and talk is ongoing there. That's where I'm heading. And until tomorrow at 1 o'clock, see you later. Thanks for listening, watching.